Seekers of Eternity, Final Fantasy XIV Patch 7.2 seems to be bringing the content to Dawntrail finally, so let's go over the letter from the producer live, part 1 concerning Patch 7.2. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and let's get right on into it, shall we? So first up in the live stream, they revealed that it's coming out late March 2025, so we still have about a month and a half until this content will likely come out. And by likely, I mean I can't subtract dates in the top of my head, so late March 2025 is when 7.2 is dropping. As is the case with every new patch in Final Fantasy XIV, we are getting new main story quests, MSQ. Yeah, like, it's new main story, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Hopefully it continues the trend from 7.1 of me being at least somewhat interested in the story going on. It has its down points, still has those moments that feel like, why are we doing this? Hopefully 7.2 is far less, if any of those sections at all. I would like that. We just are continuing the story for the epilogue of Dawntrail. There's a lot of elements to this main story that I'm particularly interested in. What's going on with Fiend, what's going on with the others Fiend. It'll be really interesting to see the overall writing of the characters here, in my opinion, because I'm not expecting anything outside of the norm for what we had with Dawntrail and mainly 7.1. I imagine it's going to be more of the same, a continuation of that, until we wrap up this Dawntrail story with 7.3, and then move into, like, the prologue for the next expansion with 7.4 and 7.5, or at least leading up to that new story. Personally, what I want of the new MSQ is for them to focus specifically on this Fiend stuff, focus specifically on the Solution 9 stuff, because that's where my interest lies right now, not in anything else. I don't want another section where we're taking care of a train, or we're, like, talking about how to herd a bunch of buffalo and stuff like that. I don't care about that stuff. Relegate that type of content, that type of world building, in my opinion, to side content for those who do care about that type of world building. I would like the main story to be plot focused and plot centric. Focus on what's going on with Fiend, focus on what's going on with all of these elements with Solution 9, because I think they do have something cool boiling up there. It's just we need more time to focus in on those elements and let those elements shine. And I say this as we move on over to this screenshot, and we got this iPad kid here, so at this point, throw it all away, and we just have to burn the world down. Someone go ring up Bahamut. We need another A Realm Reborn. Do you think my man has Flappy Bird on that thing, though? Or is that just an urban legend at this point? Wait, it is Final Fantasy XIV, so would it be like Flappy Chocobo? I don't want to be overly pessimistic with this video, but we do have a new Allied Society quest, the Beast Tribe stuff, with the Mamulja. It's a gathering one. Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't particularly care at all about the Pelu Pelu stuff. The Mamulja was the most interesting new group or faction we had with Dawntrail, in my opinion. I quite liked their story in the forest. It was a bit weirdly paced, but I thought overall, in terms of tone of what was going on there, it was like the group that I cared the most about outside of Solution 9. So hopefully it continues those story elements with, the dead children in the pots. Just, like, focus in on that element a lot and the ramifications of all that and the fallout, and maybe they could cook something cool up here. Gotta wait and see. I'm not joking. Hildibrand might end up being the highlight of Dawntrail for me, because the prologue we got with Hildibrand with 7.1 was not much at all. It was, like, shockingly short. It was like 20, if not 40 minutes. It was something really short like that, but it was really dang good, and I quite enjoyed it. And if they continue those trends, that wacky humor that I love so much, I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me at least, I love the Hildibrand stuff we got with Dawntrail, but I need a lot more of it. If they can stick the landing, have this be a bit more meaty and more to sink my teeth into, honestly, this is one of the things I'm looking forward to the most when it comes to 7.2. Keep Hildibrand the way it should be, an optional side quest chain for those of us who appreciate this type of humor, who appreciate this style of presentation. Keep it as optional side content, and don't attach a weird relic grind to it like they did with Endwalker, where you force a bunch of people who just want a weapon to experience a story that they just may not vibe with. I prefer this direction with Hildibrand. Keep it side content so that I and people who like it can do it all we want, and for those who want to ignore it, they can do that all they want as well. We're getting a new corn servant side quest. I haven't even done the first one, but like, it looks cute enough. I like this guy, but like, yeah. I'll leave a link in the description down below to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord because they have translations for it all, which is what I read through before making this video. And Yoshi P made a pretty funny joke here because the new tomestones are called Tomestones of Mathematics, and I kind of like the idea he, spitballed, where when you're turning in these new tomestones, they ask you to pick a prime number, and if you pick the wrong one, you lose all your tomestones. That'd be a great idiot check, in my opinion. Really prepare people for eventually evilly chaotic. I would love that. New duty support for the Sunken Temple of Khan. I mean, I don't do PvP in this game, so I'm gonna skip this, but there you go. It's there, I guess. Say what you will about Dawntrail, but one of my favorite elements to Dawntrail is just the visual spectacle a lot of these dungeons ended up being, because good god, look at this screenshot. It's so cool. I just love it when the dungeons have a grandiose aesthetic and they seem massive and sprawling, and then it's just a bunch of linear corridors and, the typical formula. Good god, it's dungeon visuals like this that make me wish we could truly explore this location as an in-game location. Like, imagine if this was a new zone we could explore. I'm just thinking of how cool that could be. And then it winds up being this, where you're just on this linear corridor and you boss arena fight, and then you move on to the next linear corridor. Yeah, I am of the opinion I think dungeon design needs a massive overhaul in Final Fantasy XIV, if you couldn't tell. I'm sure it'll be fun, because I actually quite like boss design in Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, especially in the dungeons. I think it's been better than it has been in a long while. It's just the accoutrement, the seasoning, the flavor of it all just needs a look at, in my opinion. Acting as if I wouldn't spot this FF9 reference from the very beginning, by the way. You're not getting this one past me. I recognize this hallway, those stairs from the beginning of FF9 with Zidane and Garnet. You're not getting that one by me. And there's another big FF9 reference later on in this video that I missed on my initial viewing, but Audrey over on Twitter, link in the description down below, picked up on it, and we'll talk about it when we get there. It concerns the new trial, though. I'll just leave that as a nice little tease. And we have new Arcadian. I loved Arcadian Tier 1. I'm a big Arcadian fan. I thought it was a ton of fun. I love the vibe. I love the actual fights going on. I'm looking forward to the Cruiserweight tier, pretty much Tier 2, for the Arcadian. I mean, these cats look cute, sure, but, I mean, it's Arcadian, right? It's gonna be more of what was there. If you enjoyed it like me, you're probably looking forward to this. If you didn't, I do like at least the idea that older fights are still gonna be there as returning characters like Brute Bomber here on the left. Again, we just need to wait to see how the actual raid pans out, though. I'm optimistic about it. I remember them mentioning, or at least in the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord translation, Yoshi P talking about. This translation's courtesy of Miyuna in the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord. Yoshi P said, there is a very speedy fight in this raid series as well. Not saying it's on this map, but there will be one that has a high tempo. I am particularly looking forward to how that one pans out. I quite like the spectacle of the Arcadian. This screenshot in particular reminds me of like those old rainbow road maps in Mario Kart used to have. Reminds me of that aesthetic. Very colorful, very neon lit. A giant disco ball. Maybe there's gonna be giant lasers that come out of it and get reflected off these like lighting panels. Who knows? Could be cool. And now the new trial. Hello, Beatrix from FF9. You have to squint a little bit and look at the exact details because it's not a one-for-one thing, but it does look quite similar with the blindfold, the way the belt looks overall. There is a lot of similarities here to Beatrix, and with how FF9 coded Dawntrail has been, especially Solution 9. Yeah, this looks very similar to Beatrix alongside that sword. Again, you have to squint a little bit, but I definitely agree with Andre here. This fight is absolutely inspired by Beatrix. Really looking forward to this one. I am so ready for the crap show this is gonna be when it actually goes back. We have Hell's Kia Unreal. Yeah. Yeah. If you know why this will kill a lot of pugs. You know. Hope you all like Dance Dance Revolution, because the way people are gonna miss up this mechanic, talk about me here as well. The way people, not me, totally, believe me, trust, are gonna mess up this mechanic. Oh, the stories that will be shared. Oh, the forum posts that will be made. And now for the section of the live letter I'm sure a lot of people were anticipating, and that is the stuff covering cosmic exploration and the new Bozja type content coming into Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail with 7.2, and first up is cosmic exploration. And the whole idea behind this system is that with each new patch, we go to a new planet and cultivate it and pretty much bring it up from nothing and give it some wildlife, some kind of vibrancy, if that makes sense. And they show a few screenshots later on, and let's go take a look at those right now. The main idea behind this system, I'll just read it from the screenshot here: collaborate with players from your world as you explore the cosmos in this new activity designed for crafters and gatherers. Right, so this is not a combat specific thing, this is for your crafting and gathering jobs. You go, if you have done Ishgard Restoration back in the day, think somewhat like that, but also different, and we'll talk about it, giant robots, later on. Right, so this is kind of what they were talking about, where when you start, and I believe this is the first planet we'll get in Cosmic Exploration. Note, it's not the only one, we get a new planet with each new patch. This is how it starts out, and then over time, it'll turn into this. I don't know if this is the end stage, I doubt they would spoil that. This is probably some intermediary stage, and we add extra flora and just give color and life to this star. I know it doesn't look all that special right now. I imagine this is like one of the early steps. Very reminiscent to me of, say, the Eden raids back in Shadowbringers for Final Fantasy XIV. Reminds me kind of like that. We're going through that region piecemeal by piecemeal, bringing back life to that sprawling wasteland and desolation. Probably a similar vibe going on here. Be really interested to see how far we push this, because this could be really cool conceptually, right? It could be. I am not expecting like overly in-depth gameplay or anything like that. It is just crafting and gathering, and you'll be doing it as a group trying to go through this overall objective. They did mention that unlike in Ishgard Restoration, where the progress was made by the community, so if you joined rather late in the cycle of that, you didn't see those early stages. They said they had something to at least show you the progress, so we'll need to see how that pans out, how that holds up. And you can kind of see the scale of this right here with the character and this like moon rover thing in the bottom right corner here. And then this is going to be essentially your home base of operations for this region, and we build up on it and actually develop what looks like a moon base, which as a bit of a sci-fi nerd does pique my curiosity. Rather interesting. I believe some of these buildings are also enterable, not all of them though. And then over time we add more and more to this system. You can see in the background here what will amount to essentially fast travel for us here, which will be a zipline feature, and we'll get to that in a minute. But you can see we're adding more buildings, some vehicles. I hope we can drive these things across the landscape. That'd be really cool. This has a lot of potential if you just lean into how cool this could be aesthetically. The main concern that I have is that because we get a new location with each patch, that'll be very surface level. I hope that is not the case, and I'm hoping that's just me being pessimistic. I really want this to be a really cool feature. Nothing like the wind in your hair! Did you really expect me to go a video without making a Xenoblade reference? Come on, who are you talking to here? But yeah, this is like the main like method of fast travel, because this zone has some size to it apparently. So you get this zipline feature that takes you from point A to point B. Rudimentary and basic, but it's sci-fi and it's cool in my opinion. Why not? Again, that's what I want them to do. It's just gonna be gathering and crafting. Let this be a spectacle. Let this be cool. Let this be interesting. Lean into the vibe, lean into the theme, and do cool stuff like this with it. I love the overall aesthetic and vibe this place has. It's really dang cool, and kind of reminds me of Starfield. Hopefully it's better than that game, but it does kind of remind me of that overall aesthetic. You know, that moon-based feel, like the Martian stuff. I know Martian's about Mars and not the moon, but you know what I mean. And they're at least trying to make this colorful because, well, this zone feels very monochrome, at least initially, and a lot of our structures are monochrome as well, so there's not a lot of color or life there, which makes sense. So they add in a bit of color where they can, like the aetherite crystal over here, what I think is the aetherite crystal, and in these lighting structures here on this like central obelisk location. And then, of course, the thing that piques my curiosity, that whets my appetite. Giant freaking robots. And if you look carefully, you look closely, you can see this one's being piloted right in the middle. We'll go right on back. Don't try and skip past my giant robot for a man in a chair. Yeah, this is not Professor Xavier. I see a man in a robot, and that better be my character. Yeah, I just need to reiterate this point. This better be me. And if I can have actual giant mech combat in Final Fantasy XIV again, because we haven't seen the G Warrior in like over like, what is it, 2, 3, 4 years at this point. I need more giant robots in this game, Yoshi P. Square Enix, get on it. Thank you for, appealing to me personally. This is how you win me over. Just throw a giant robot in it, let me pilot it, and we're good to go. And maybe there's a couple of fights or something we could do with this giant robot. We have like what I think is a laser cannon on the shoulder, which is cool. Or we just use this as a mining node. Could be similar if you did Ishgard Restoration. Remember how we went to that one zone and we had a giant laser cannon? If this is that thing's replacement, I'm on board. 1000%. This looks infinitely cooler than just giving me a bazooka. And bear in mind, this is only part 1 of the live letter series for 7.2, and we'll get way more information and actual footage in that next live letter. You can even see, though, I like the attention to detail, like the little coffee cups here, the space food pouch stuff. I like that kind of stuff. Oh my god, is he gonna make another Xenoblade reference? This reminds me, this reminds me of in Xenoblade X with the holo figures, and how you can display them in your barracks, with Xenoblade X Definitive Edition coming out soon. I quite like this. I really hope you can display a bunch of different things and give this location some personality, if it's like your headquarters or your base of operations, and this isn't just some static scenery. If I could customize this to whatever figure I want to display, that would be really nice. Just a little touch of personality could go a long way here. And also bear in mind, if I can control that giant robot from before and engage in giant robot battles, that Loperit's face will just be me, like overall. Let's be fair here. And now for the thing that I'm most excited for when it comes to 7.2 besides Hildibrand. New field operations, the Occult Crescent. This is going to be a new type of content similar to Yabazja, similar to Eureka, stuff like that. There's going to be a new iteration on that design idea. That principle looks rather cool. Let's get into it. In the treacherous waters of Shady's Triangle, think Bermuda Triangle, lies the Occult Crescent, an isle shrouded in mystery. Should you wish to unveil its secrets, you must explore the unmapped terrain and battle against the isle's inhabitants. This is the vibe that I wish 7.0 had overall with the MSQ. Let us go to a new unexplored land and just go on this journey of exploration. I wanted to feel like, I know this term gets overused a lot, but I want to go on that Indiana Jones style of adventure. This feels like it's more inspired by that way of going on adventure, that idea of a journey. This could be really cool if executed well. I think this will be like the first initial location we wind up at, and then the overall zone, from the sounds of it, is a giant grassy plain with some ruins, some structures, and these floating bubbles which look really cool. I think this place looks very pretty. I quite like the overall aesthetic going on here. Reminds me of La Nocia with those ruins that have been overtaken in the waters and all that. Reminds me of that stuff, and I quite enjoy that element here. Very colorful, very pretty. But of course, the important element here is the actual content going on. The fights, the overall flow of it, and there's some interesting ideas going on here. You can see some battle arenas, but also some aesthetic diversity, which I do think is needed in zones like this, because you're going to be pumping in a lot of hours into this content if you take it seriously, and if you're just staring at the same old visual palette over and over and over again, it's going to get boring, it's going to get monotonous, it's going to look very samey, and then over time, you'll just get bored of looking at the content. So you need to have that good visual diversity, various aesthetic offerings. They seemingly have some of that here, with those more open, grassy locations and exploring these ruins particularly. Hopefully there's some verticality to the zone. Let me go up these structures, like, let me go up here. I think that'd be really cool. Lean into the idea of this being an exploration event. Like I said, I love this kind of stuff. I'll eat up this aesthetic all day long. This looks extremely pretty to me, despite the stream only being in 1080p. But let me explore this castle. Now, we are going to get a bit of a spoiler here. We are going to get a 48-man raid on launch with this piece of content. So they already talked about that later on in the live letter. Yeah, I'm glad they're not really time gating, hopefully, all that kind of stuff, and let it launch with a bunch of content and then iterate on it and add even more down the line, because that's what Final Fantasy XIV needs more than anything. It's just more content that isn't just instance-based raiding, that leans into the MMO elements of the MMORPG, because those are important elements. Welcome to Jurassic Park. Da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. Giant dinosaurs, and it's not just the one, because you may might be able to miss him, but if you look in the background over here, you can see another little guy over here. Maybe he's just watching us kill his brother or something, and maybe this dinosaur will be the main villain of 8.0 as it goes on a revenge story. Who knows? Anything is possible at this point. This character design looks really dang cool to me. I love the sword, the overall outfit looks great, and of course it's Final Fantasy XIV, so we have an edgelord over here, and then just someone in a full bunny suit. That's Final Fantasy XIV through and through, let's be fair here. There is something I wanted to point out, though. I don't think they really expanded on this idea, but down here in the bottom left, it says, engage in successive battles with a small party of allies. They could just be alluding to, say, critical engagements, or like fate farming from Bosja, stuff like that, but if these fights can go on and have a bit of a boss gauntlet, that could be really cool. Again, it depends on execution. You don't want this to just feel like, oh, go fill a bunch of bars, then have a boss fight, rinse, repeat. There needs to be some more variety there. And by variety, I don't just mean monsters that are absolutely caked up, because what am I looking at here? Why does this thing have so much ass? Join forces with your fellow adventurers in large-scale boss battles. This might be one of the critical engagements, like one of those instant fights. Now, they did mention that this cross-based AoE may rotate on you, so you gotta be on the lookout for that. And also turtles in a half shell, apparently, because why are we flying? I just want to ask that question. Why are we flying? Now, if we could pull a Mario, and if we land on the turtle that, like, knocks him out or, like, stuns him for a period of time, that would be really cool. I kind of doubt that's what they'll do, but I'm just saying it'd be really cool. Maybe we could do it to, like, this smaller turtle over on the left-hand side here. I'm just saying, I'm thinking, my imagination's going a mile a minute. Yeah, and they're just showing off a wide variety of different fights we got here. For content like this, especially content as battle-focused like Bosja was, and what this will likely amount to be, you need to have a lot of varied and different fights that play differently to one another, because again, you're going to be doing these fights a lot, so if there's too few of them, and you just end up doing these fights over and over and over again, it's going to get boring and stale and stagnant rather quickly. So if they can have this content launch with a bunch of different boss fights and update this with each of the new patch cycles, that will go a long way in my opinion. And then, of course, what I was talking about before, the 48-man raid. I'm glad they're doing this again. I thought it was quite cool last time they did it with stuff like the Dalriada. Really interesting. I quite like it. Now, the system. What makes Occult Crescent unique and what makes it stand out? Let's talk about it. So, there's a resource, a new type of XP you'll be farming. It is called a knowledge level. And then you have this other thing called a phantom job. Knowledge level apparently influences the outcome of battles against the creatures on the isle. Now, they didn't go into too much detail, I think, about what knowledge level actually does for you, but I imagine it's linked to this other system called a phantom job. Now, what this is, right, is essentially multi-classing. I'll just read the tin here. On the isle, players will have access to unique jobs known as phantom jobs. When equipped, they will grant players new actions that can be used with their main job. So, kind of similar in idea to the lost actions of the past. But, you'll be taking these various jobs, like this one on the right here called a Phantom Freelancer, and you'll be taking some actions that you can use on your main job alongside everything else. So, say you play a warrior, and you can spec into something called a Phantom Job Monk, where you gain access to actions such as a Phantom Kick and an Occult Counter, and apparently this will increase your offensive capabilities. So, as a tank, if you want to do more damage, you might want to pick up the Monk. But you can also spec into something like the Phantom Job Bod, where you get support capabilities like Mighty March. So if you want a bit more support, you can go for Bod. If you want a bit more offense, a bit more DPS, you can go for something like Monk. These aren't the only Phantom Jobs on offer, though. I don't think these are all of them, and I imagine we might get more as the patch cycle goes on and on and on, with 7.3 going on forward from that. But the other ones listed here are Geomancer, Ranger, Berserker, Time Mage, Chemist, and Cannoneer. I'm quite interested in Berserker myself. But, again, thank you to the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord for this translation. Yoshi P says, Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO after all, so looking into the future, we want to implement new jobs in 8.0 and beyond, but for some players, there are obviously jobs from past Final Fantasy series that they have a lot of memories with, but unfortunately, some of those jobs simply wouldn't fit the concept of Final Fantasy as an MMO. Time Mage as an example. But we did think, maybe in this kind of content as a Phantom support job, maybe we can go a little crazy with it. I understand, because there's the same reaction people had with limited jobs, that some people will not like that response, in terms of why some jobs, like Time Age, may not be implemented as a mainstay permanent job. However, they are also addressing a point I always bring up when it comes to content like this, where it's its own thing, this doesn't affect mainstay rating, it doesn't affect the rest of the game. Have fun, lean into the wacky, lean into the silly, let us go on a power trip, make it fun and interesting content we have to sink our teeth into, but give us a way to really spread our wings and to do wacky stuff we ordinarily wouldn't be able to. Make this content fun and interesting, not just from a boss design perspective, but from how I can interface and interact with these fights. If they really do lean into that idea and into those elements, this could be really cool. And I think one of Final Fantasy XIV's biggest problems in the past is them playing it a bit too safe. But some of those lost actions we got back in the past with things like Bosja were really dang cool and interesting. Lean into that. Be even more silly, be even more wacky, more stupid. We need to be able to be stupid. Yoshi P also says, so while there is a small chance some of these jobs might make it to the main game in the future, I was also told players know and say to don't trust Yoshi P, so take that as you will. So just because a job is here doesn't mean it might not be a job implemented into the main game in the future. It's just, it's not a promise. So maybe in the future we do see something like a chemist or a cannoneer or a berserker or a ranger or a geomancer, probably not a time age, but probably something like those other ones, maybe, but again, it's not a promise. Let's talk relic weapon, or what they call weapon enhancement. So there's two ways to go about doing it with Dawntrail. You can either do it in the Occult Crescent, or engage with what they call existing activities, which I imagine is the rest of the game. So if you want to know life and put a bunch of hours into Occult Crescent, you can enhance your weapon, as they call it, by doing so. But if you don't want to really interface with Occult Crescent, but you still want your relic weapon or your weapon enhancement by playing the rest of the game, some way, somehow, you'll still be able to do that. Whether or not one of these will be way better or faster or more efficient than the other remains to be seen, but I appreciate the flexibility nonetheless. And then the remainder of the stream was him just announcing a bunch of other collabs and stuff like that, and Yoshi P, I guess, aura farming like he's Sung Jin Woo. But overall, it's what we expected. I think 7.2 is bringing the content that I wanted a lot from Dawntrail with its release, but it's Final Fantasy XIV, so we had to wait a while. That wait is a bit of a killer for a lot of people, and I've talked about this before. I don't really particularly want to rehash those points right here and now, but while 7.2 I don't think will be particularly surprising for anyone, I think the most important thing for them to do is to nail the landing with especially Cosmic Exploration and the Occult Crescent. You have to nail the landing, have them be really fun and in-depth, and let me sink my teeth into them, which I think they both have the capabilities to, and I think the biggest thing they have to avoid is feeling too much like Bosja and feeling too much like Ishgard Restoration. I think in terms of overall environment and aesthetic, they're good. I quite like what they're doing with both Cosmic Exploration and the Occult Crescent. However, if the Occult Crescent just boils down to a bunch of fill the bar fate grinding and then go do a boss fight, I just think it needs more meat on its bones than that. Hopefully the new raid is good, not just the Arcadian but the new 48-man. It does seem as if 7.2 will have quite a bit of content to chew on. I know there's the joke that it'll last a week. Hopefully it lasts longer than that with things like Cosmic Exploration and the Occult Crescent. Those are elements and styles of content that I think Final Fantasy XIV really needs to embrace, because as much as people want to talk about how you can play this game solo, or how it doesn't focus as much on the MMO elements as other games, it is still an MMORPG, and while I don't think games necessarily need to be bound by the constraints of the genre that they're in, I do think Final Fantasy XIV particularly needs to lean into those MMO elements and give me content and give us content that makes us feel as if we're playing the game with a bunch of other people. The 8-man raids are cool and all, and they're nice, but they don't feel like a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. They just feel like a multiplayer online role-playing game. I need that other M. We need that second M. We need massively here. A 48-man raid could be a cluster crap, right? But it's cool, dude. It's cool seeing all those people work together. These giant wide open spaces, when there's a bunch of other people there, all experimenting with different abilities you get access access to, it's cool. Lean into that stuff. Don't shy away from it. That's what I hope they do, because I think 7.2 has the potential to inject 14, at least Dawntrail, with the life that it needs for right now. I don't think it's going to particularly move the needle for anyone, and if you're really down and out about Final Fantasy XIV right now, I don't see it really bringing you back in. But if you haven't completely written the game off, or you're still liking Final Fantasy XIV, I could see 7.2 being a great patch for you, as it probably will be for me. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm optimistic. So with that, I think I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Leave a comment down below with what you're most excited for and looking forward to with 7.2, and what you still want to see from Final Fantasy XIV going into the future. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!